although it doesn't seem like it. This happened quite a while back, probably over 10 years ago. I was in the later years of high school and was home alone. My parents were at a wedding that required them to stay at a hotel, and my brother worked the night shift. At that time, my family lived in a very well-known East Coast city in a blue-collar neighborhood that was starting to take a nosedive. As a teenager, I was a bit of a loner. I wasn't a nerd or anything. I was a big dude who had friends and went on dates. But I'm a natural introvert, so I cherished the rare alone time that I got. This weekend, I was looking forward to engaging in my normal empty house routine, play some PlayStation on the big screen TV, then order a late takeout dinner, pizza or Chinese, and pig out while watching some Dragon Ball Z. Then, around 2 a.m., fall asleep on the couch with my old dog, Cecil. Cecil was a beagle who was as old as the hills and had been in our family for about 8 years. He was quiet and peaceful and spent his time begging for food and sleeping. Unlike most beagles, Cecil never howled or barked. He was more than content to rest his head on your lap and spend the night there. Anyway, back to the story. It's approximately 1 a.m. and I had just finished the last slice of pizza and was dozing off on the couch when I heard a bang coming from the back alleyway. I didn't think much of it. Anyone who has lived in a city knows noises happen at all moments of the night. Cecil's head popped up off my lap and the hair on his back stood up. He was always a bit skittish, so I calmed him down and started dozing off again. Not more than 2 minutes later, I heard another bang, and Cecil did something I had never seen him do before. He leapt off the couch and ran like the wind towards the door leading to the basement, barking and growling like a dog twice his size. The look on his face reminded me of a German Shepherd canine unit. I had never seen him like that before, which got my adrenaline pumping. Through the dog's barking, I could now make out a persistent banging. There was a seldom used door in the basement that led to our back alleyway. It was old and rusted and was hard to open, even with a key, and it made a lot of noise. I suddenly realized that someone was trying to break into my house through my basement door. Quick little bit of context for anyone who hasn't lived in a bad neighborhood. If someone tries to get into your house and moves on after they realize the door is locked, they want your stuff. If someone is persistently trying to get into your house despite the door being locked, well, they want you. Knowing this, I rush upstairs to grab the heavy wood baseball bat that I keep under my bed for situations like this. Then I head down to the basement. I probably should have ran, but I was a macho teenager with a tough guy complex, and plus, I had nowhere to go. While I'm heading down the stairs to my basement, Cecil blows past me with the speed and aggression of a dog half his age. Suddenly, I hear a man's voice say, "Oh fuck," and the banging stopped. I didn't call the cops or anyone else, which was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. I just sat up for the rest of the night with a bat in my hand. My brother came home that morning, and I told him what had happened. We went to the basement door to take a look, and when we gave it a tug to open it, the whole door fell off. This psycho was one good shove away from getting in my house, but old Cecil scared him off. I'm pretty sure that lazy, fat old dog saved my life. When I tell this story to people, they dismiss his actions as a dog doing what a dog was supposed to do. But when I tell you that Cecil never barked or moved that fast in his life, you can take that to the bank. It was almost like he knew the urgency, like he knew that door was gonna give. A few years back, we had to have him put down because he just had no will to live anymore. Before the injection, I got a moment alone with him. I thanked him one last time for his friendship and for what he did that night. At this point, I was a grown man with a wife and kids. I'm convinced none of that would have happened without old Cecil. Thanks, pal. I miss you. I have a family friend who owns a beautiful and very old house in a wealthy suburb of a large city. She was going on vacation, and her husband was leaving for a business trip. So she asked me to cat sit for her. I had done it for her before and adored the house and area, so I agreed. The house appeared very small and quaint from the street, but was actually very rambling and had a bizarre layout and never seemed to end. The basement was a walkout with 2 doors and 2 staircases that led to the main floor. This house was so weirdly designed that you would find rooms and hallways and doors you didn't even realize existed, even after days of staying there. I spent most of my time in the front room of the home, which had a very large window facing the street and no curtains. One night I was studying on the couch in the front room in front of the window. It was so pitch black out that I couldn't see anything outside, even though I was just inches away from the window. I started to feel extremely on edge and uncomfortable, and like I was being observed. Around 2:30 a.m., I shut off all of the lights in the house and retired to a small bedroom in the middle right side of the main floor that had a window with blinds. I watched a few videos on YouTube, making sure to leave the door open a crack because the cats liked to come in and out throughout the night. I thought I heard a male voice coming from the basement at one point, but I dismissed it as me being creeped out about being alone in this old rambling house. Around 3 a.m., I decided to shut everything down and go to bed. For the first time in hours, the house was completely quiet because I was no longer reciting information to myself during study or watching any loud videos. However, that silence was fleeting. It was quickly broken by what sounded like a very large man loudly stomping up the stairs from the basement. Thus began the most terrifying experience of my life, during which I was certain that my life was in great danger. This person was not trying to creep around the house or be subtle. They made no attempt to hide the sound of their steps. They very deliberately and loudly clomped their way up the staircase, like they were supposed to be entering this house at 3 a.m. Because of this, I thought perhaps the owner's husband had come home from his business trip early and didn't realize I was still there. I called out, "Hello?" in a harsh, questioning way to indicate that I was not expecting anyone to be there. I was hoping it was the husband and that he would maybe respond back, perhaps confused or apologetic for scaring me. But instead, there was silence. As my voice rang out, the steps stopped and no words were spoken. I knew then that something was wrong. I got up from the bed and just stared at the crack in the door, waiting for something to happen. Then, the timid female cat bolts into the room, meowing like crazy and winding around my legs, seemingly distressed. This cat was so timid that she would run away from me at the slightest noise or movement. But now, she was so spooked that she was running towards me for comfort, even though I had been calling out aggressively and jumping out of my bed. Then I knew that whoever it was not someone this cat was familiar with, and therefore no one who had any business being in that house. I went to the bed and picked up my phone and called 911. Then I picked up an iron, closed the bedroom door, and leaned against it. It had no lock, so I just had to hope they wouldn't try to push their way in. I was on the phone with the operator and pretty certain my life was going to end. I was shaking so hard that the door was violently rattling in the door frame. At one point, the operator told me to listen to what was going on, so I forced myself to stop shaking so I could hear. But when I heard movement, I let myself shake again so the door would rattle and I wouldn't have to hear them walking around. If I was going to be killed by this person, I didn't want to go through the dread of hearing them walking towards me. Eventually, the cops showed up and I had to dart out of the room and run to the front of the house to unlock the front door. They come in and spend all of 5 minutes searching this chaotically laid out rambling house. One of them even commented, "It just keeps going," in disbelief. They didn't find anything. At first I thought I must be going crazy because there was no question in my mind that I had heard the footsteps. But the police are telling me all the doors in the basement are locked. They ended up leaving, but because of all the rooms and furniture and weird little nooks and crannies in the house, I just felt like a 5-minute search was nowhere near enough to actually find someone who wanted to conceal themselves there. I ended up calling my mother at 3 a.m., crying, and she came over. Then I realized something. The intruder would have walked right past my obvious pile of cash on the kitchen table, and it was untouched. This made me think that they weren't there to burgle. I have often wondered if the person had been waiting for me to go to sleep, just hyping themselves up to come upstairs and do whatever the hell they were planning. And perhaps hearing me aggressively call out to them and call the cops deterred them that night. It terrifies me to think of what would have happened if I had been asleep, or what that person was planning, having walked up the stairs so boldly like that when it was obvious that someone was home. We noticed the next day that the laundry room window in the basement was open. Apparently, the police hadn't even noticed. I searched the news in that area online, and there had been a break-in incident just weeks prior where a woman woke up in the middle of the night to an intruder sitting in the dark, watching her sleep, who proceeded to rape and badly assault her. I've been messed up over the whole thing since. I've been on Reddit for about 2 years now, but I just now found this subreddit. After reading a few of the top posts, I realized that what happened this summer to me is a perfect fit here. I haven't written anything in a long time, so sorry if this isn't the most articulate post. This fucked me up for a while, and I'm still not completely okay, but it's easier to cope. It was the middle of summer, and my parents had left for the weekend to go to our house in Cape Cod. It's about a 2-hour drive away, so it's no big deal for them to leave me alone for a few days. My mom had made some pulled pork and pasta for me to heat up to eat whenever, and I had some money if I wanted to order a pizza. Things were all good. The first night I was alone, I stayed up till 3 in the morning playing Xbox, so I woke up really late the next day. I checked my phone when I woke up, and I saw it was a little past 1. I had made plans to play some street hockey with my friends at 3, so I threw myself out of bed and stumbled into the shower. I take really long showers, so when my parents are gone, I go mental. I was in there for about 45 minutes on my phone scrolling through Reddit and Twitter and whatnot, when I heard my front door open. The bathroom is directly up the stairs from the back door, and the thing is pretty loud when it opens and closes. I immediately froze, since obviously I was supposed to be alone. I waited for about 2 minutes, ears trained in trying to hear anything else. Nothing. I figured it was just the wind, or maybe my parents were home early. So I turned off the shower, wrapped my towel around myself, and slowly walked down the stairs to check it out. So the stairs to the kitchen, where the back door is, are pretty tight and walled in. So I can't see into the kitchen when I walk down, even though my house is old as shit and each step on the stairs makes a super loud creak. I still took my time and tried to be as quiet as possible. I probably took 45 seconds walking down all 12 of the stairs. So when I get to the second to last stair, right before I could see around the corner into the kitchen, I take a little breath to compose myself. In my mind, I knew I was being stupid. There obviously wasn't anything in the kitchen. There's no way I wouldn't have heard another noise, and there's no reason for them to still be in the kitchen, even if there were burglars or something in the house. After sort of mentally chastising myself for being such a wuss, I sort of chuckled to myself for being so stupid and just normally walked the last 2 stairs and turned the corner into the kitchen. Standing about 2 feet away from me in the middle of my kitchen is a man staring straight at me, perfectly still, with a massive smile across his face, just staring at me. The thing I remember most vividly wasn't his face or his smile, but his arms. They weren't just at his side. He held them in the strangest, most abnormal position I've ever seen. They were where one would normally hold their arms, but he had rotated them to the point where they were almost completely reversed, as well as lifting them up and a little behind himself. I don't know why I remember this so much, but it's just the most demonic, abnormal position I've ever seen. Honest to God, I think I almost had a heart attack right there. Looking back, I can realize how fucking creepy this situation was. But in the moment, I just took a step towards him and punched him as hard as I could in the jaw, sort of half slapping or pushing him towards the ground. The second I connected, I beelined up the stairs, dropping my towel in the kitchen with my heart beating out of control. I fucking sprinted into my room and locked the door behind me. I quickly put a chair up against the doorknob like you see on TV. Almost without thinking, I immediately called 911 and, nearly in tears, told the operator what happened. As I sat on the floor of my room, in practically the fetal position, staring at the door, praying that a cop would be here soon, I noticed the light coming from the gap between my door had stopped. The fucker was standing outside of my door. There's no words to describe the feeling I had. I was paralyzed with fear. Watching the shadow across the bottom of the door shift in tiny ways, I stayed balled up, staring at the gap, praying the man would go away for what seemed like an hour. All the while, the 911 operator was asking,
"Hello? Sir? Sir, are you there? Hello?"
I didn't want to make a noise. And even if I wanted to move my arms to bring the phone to my mouth, I don't think I could have. Eventually, the light returned to the gap, and I heard the faintest of footsteps, slowly creaking the wooden floorboards as he walked down the hall. It was silent for minutes as I just sat there curled up, unable to even speak. I heard banging on the front door and the sound of 2 officers entering my house. I finally felt safe, and I opened the door to the 2 of them standing there. I almost cried. Nowadays, my parents don't even leave me home alone anymore. Thank God. And I check every lock on the house before going to bed. I still get nightmares occasionally, and my heart starts racing whenever I see someone standing still. But I'm doing all right, even working with sketch artists and a few lineups. The police never found whoever the fuck was in my house. That sends shivers down my spine every time I look outside, half expecting to see him standing across the street, smiling under a lamppost. I have no idea what he wanted or who he was, but regardless, let's not meet ever again.